Beyond the Paranormal Podcast host John the Bod and Ghost Hunter Guys member Robert Isaac traveled to Somerset, Kentucky, home of the International Paranormal Museum and Research Center last September, to speak with Kyle Kadel, the owner, about the museum, his ghost hunting experiences, cryptids, UFOs, and why Kyle created this very museum. Hear it now on Beyond the Paranormal Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Beyond the Paranormal Podcast. My name's John, aka the Bodfather, and Christina and Rihanna couldn't be with us today, but they're always with us in spirits. But I am here at the International Paranormal Museum and Research Center with the owner, Kyle Kadel. So, Kyle, how you doing, my friend?
Pretty good. How about you?
Doing good. This is a cool place, and like I said when I first got here, I'm very glad that this place is here, and forgive me for sounding stupid, but I didn't know this was here for 5 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. Next month, October 14th, will be our 5-year anniversary. And yeah, like I said, we've had over 12,000 people come from over 30 states and over 8 countries.
Wow.
We've been pretty blessed, really, to have this much of a response, you know. We don't have a lot of space down here, and it's amazing to think that we've been able to bring this many people to our small town that we think is weird and worth coming to.
Sure.
And luckily people are agreeing with us, you know.
I got to know, though, when you said 8 countries,
yeah,
you've had people from 8 countries come in here to our little small back holler here in Kentucky.
Yeah, at least.
What's that mean to you, though?
I mean, I'm really happy about it because, you know, I've always been big into the paranormal, but I've also been big into tourism. And I always really appreciate, like, the idea of tourism is opening up your home to people from all over the world, you know? And we've been able to do that here and introduce them to a town that they absolutely would have passed by on the interstate 20 minutes away, not knowing that it was ever here, you know? So.
And a lot of places don't have anything like this because they, 1, don't talk about it, 2, it's taboo, or 3, you was taught that didn't exist when you was brought up as a kid.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, we live in a time now that, you know, there's always been stuff like the Roswell UFO Museum, but that was like a one niche thing. But now we live in a time where there's a dozen paranormal or Bigfoot or oddity museums in America right now, or Mothman museums, whatever it is, you know.
And there's more people talking about seeing cryptids. There's more people talking about the paranormal.
Exactly.
Just in fact, my brother who goes with me on our ghost hunts, Robert, went to Octagon Hall yesterday, and we were there, what, Rob, 12 years ago maybe? 12 years at the most. And they have found more new stuff. They have got more history when you go in now. And it excites me as a paranormal investigator because it's like, all right, that's cool. There's more stuff we're finding out, and plus more stuff that we can actually try to reach out to and, you know, fix your questions up more and not honed on like one certain thing.
Yeah. And, you know, personally, I believe that, like, the investigator is an absolute essential member of having paranormal occurrence. It's like the saying, if a tree falls in the forest, no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Well, paranormal activity doesn't happen unless there's someone there to experience it, you know?
Exactly.
And I think that our own like questing for the paranormal activity is partially what makes it like happen, because it's a response to our own psyche, you know? I could see something happen and I think it was a ghost, because this is what I do, but if I'm with someone that's extremely religious, they might see it as an angel. And it's all based on how our personal filters are set up to know what exactly we're going to like encounter, you know? So
you hit the nail on the head right there for me, because I have so many questions about, like, children, for instance. You go to these locations who have those histories of children's sightings and things like that. They get these EVPs of the children, and I'm like, well, if they're God's children, and I'm sure, me and you both don't know this answer, but if they're God's children, why are they still here? To me, that makes me think we're not dealing with a child.
Exactly. Yeah, the more I do this, the more I think that everything's related. That I usually refer to it as the other. That a thing that is an intelligence can show itself as a UFO or a Bigfoot.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean it's not the exact same thing, appealing to what you would pay the most attention to versus what I would pay the most attention to, you know?
So you've been doing this, what, since 16 years of age?
I've been doing it, right about then. I started in about 2002 when I was in high school.
Man, so what was it about it, though, that said, I want to go and try to do some investigation? Was it just because there's nothing else to do?
That was a huge part of it. We grew up in this small town. It was a dry county, and me and my friends didn't drink underage. And so there wasn't a lot to do, on the weekends back then in this town. Luckily, it's grown a lot for like activities and stuff. But back then, there wasn't a lot to do. So we would make our own fun. And part of that is like ghost hunting shows just started coming out on like sci-fi. And we were really into them, me and my friends, and really didn't believe them. We were much like Mulder. We wanted to believe them, but we didn't, and so we decided to prove them wrong to ourselves by going out to some of the local, haunted places. And it only took about 2 or 3 months of doing that before we had found enough evidence that changed my mind, I still refer to myself as an open skeptic. But really at this point, what matters more is that people experience it, to me, rather than, gathering the concrete evidence that will change a non-believer's mind. I'm past that. Someone's not going to believe if they don't want to. Mm-hmm. But I think it's more important that these people are engaging with these other, like these folds in reality or whatever you want to call them, and having personal experiences and adding to, for lack of a better term, the folklore of the whole paranormal scene. It used to be that you heard that one guy saw a ghost down here, but now we have 100 people going to this spot and having all sorts of encounters.
That's the thing about it, and I agree with you 1,000%. It's cool. I mean, for me personally, and I know a lot of people don't like doing this, but for me personally, I like going out and experiencing stuff like this, as far as like paranormal and cryptids and things like that. But it gets me more excited to when I bring that audio and video equipment home, and you sit there and then you just for yourself, when you go over audio, sometimes you just get lost of time because it's just nothing but static on the recorder. Then all of a sudden you hear something, man, it's like, whoa, what was that? Yeah. And some of these EVPs that you get are so crystal clear. Like there's some that we got that blows mine and Rob and people who listens to them, that blows their mind. Yeah. Like we were just at the old hospital on College Hill. There, I said it right again. And we were in the room that one of the guys who had jumped out of the window. But there was a car that went by, and I said, I said something to the point where it's late at night, somebody's out late at night, and said, "Welcome to Williamson." That is a car in the background. In that twang, that southern twang, like, "Welcome to Williamson." I mean, and to be honest with you, man, that was my first time getting back into the paranormal field and doing an investigation, because I had my own personal attachment. When you have that and you get back into it, your gut's always on edge. You have that little iffy about it, but that got me back into it again even more, because I was like, that came out of nowhere. Yeah. And and I told Rob when we went into that room, I said, man, it feels hot in here, extremely hot. And you can tell like the difference from room to room and space to space if it's heavier or something's there or not. At least I can. I'm sure you can now. But it was just so weird how that came out. Like, hey, welcome to Williamson, boys. Like, yeah. I was like, wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So what about you, though? What kept you on it? What was it about it that, for your personal experience, said, I want to know more about this? Well, I've always really been interested in this stuff. I grew up watching, X-Files and In Search Of and Unsolved Mysteries, and I was always really into kind of the weird stuff, But once we started looking ourselves for evidence, there's a lot of things that would happen that really, you could go either way. Especially as a skeptic, you're saying, okay, maybe that wasn't a voice, maybe that was whatever. Sure. But the defining moment for me was we went out to downtown Somerset Cemetery here, and we were taking some photos. My one friend was taking the photos, and I was holding the audio recorder. We was recording the whole time, and the batteries die in the digital camera, and he tries to turn it back on, and it dies again, and he says, "Kyle, I don't think it's going to take it."
And fast forward to afterwards, we're listening to the audio recording, and exactly after the investigator said, I don't think it's going to take it, there was a female voice, and we didn't have a female with us, mock him, basically, say, going to take it, like in a whisper. And it's like, all right, that's really weird. And, you know, that was really iffy for us. But then within a few days of that, I was at my house. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Always.
And, you know, this is early enough that we don't know about closing statements or intent or anything like that. So it's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the computer room, which is right next to my bedroom. And I'm listening to music, but I turn it off and start to turn the computer down off to go to sleep. And right from the door, in that same voice that we had a recording of, something said, "Hey, Kyle."
Oh.
The exact same voice. And I was like, all right, this is enough for me. And so, like, I turned the computer, like, the music back up, and I was up for another couple hours. But yeah, that was like the defining moment when a personal experience lined up with an audio recording that we had in a way that we would have never even expected. I would have never even expected, you know?
So did you continue to do more investigating after that, or did you say, I'm tapping out for a while?
No, that hooked me more than anything.
There we
It scared me momentarily, but like overall, it really piqued my interest, you know?
It has to, man. For people that are interested to find out, you know, is there stuff out there? And I'm, you know, everybody has their own, you know, judgment on what they want to do. That's totally fine. I'm not saying anything wrong or that's about it. But I'm just saying that for those who want to prove to themselves that there's something out there, there is, folks. And when it happens, it's going to come out left field.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, you may see it visually and not get it on video, but still, you know for a fact it happened.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's more something that talks to us. Like, I'm not saying it does ESP communication,
right?
But I'd say it like locks in on us to communicate with us, not necessarily the devices we have. You know, I think it's more convinced. There's a story of I forget, it was a Midwestern state in the 80s where a police officer had an encounter with like an alien and had a conversation with it, and the alien eventually said, well, we want you to believe in us, but not too much. And I really think that that's how like the other interacts, is that it's like they want us to know that they're there, but they don't want us to rely on them or something, you know?
Folks, I want to tell you this too, when you're out on an investigation, tag everything that you hear. If you make a noise, tag it. So that was me that did it, you know, I mean, in whatever room. So that way, when you go back, you have no questions about if that was your buddy or if that was who was there with you. And if it's just you, tag it anyway, because who knows, that could have been you bumping into a chair or to a table or to whatever. But always tag your stuff that you're doing. When you're going into an investigation, do you like to keep an open mind? Do you want to know a lot of stuff about it, or just going with a blind eye?
Honestly, I prefer to go in with a blind eye. Like I said, I think a lot of it is personal interaction versus rehashing exactly what happened. I definitely believe in the idea of like residual hauntings where, you know, if a ghost is walking down the stairs at a certain time every night or something, that's going to happen whether you know about it or not, you know? But I do think that a lot of the intelligent hauntings or the intelligent interactions work out better if you don't have a story in your mind, like an expectation of what you're going to see. That being said, I do often like to, like about halfway through an investigation, get a little bit more information, you know, and that way you can see if anything you have is lined up with it, and if so, you can follow those threads a little bit more. Or you can, if you've had a quiet night, you can kind of re-engage in a different way, you know?
Yeah, spice up your questions. And I always, you know, when we used to go back in the day, we're doing it now again, I always throw an oddball question out there like, you know, can you see me? Can you ask me a question? And I've got some good results from that.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to just communicate with them. Well, how about they communicate with you?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, think about if this is their only interaction with the living, and they are asked the same 5 questions by every ghost hunter that walks through, you know?
What's your name?
Yeah.
Where you at? Well, how old are you?
Yeah, you never get past the small talk stage. You
No,
know?
you never do. And there's always those 5 status quo questions that everybody asks. And then,
Yeah. How did you die? Yeah.
Exactly. Do you know you're dead? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, well, just change it up some.
Yeah.
Is there anything here you like? You know, is there somebody you like talking to or seeing? You know?
Exactly.
A lot of these spirits, man, that do communicate and you're fortunate to catch them, maybe it's the owner that they like being around. Maybe it's like, you know, hey, they'll take care of my place.
Yeah, exactly. We go on investigations here locally with a couple of properties that my friend Chris owns. One of them is this house that's from 1885. It's one of the 6 original houses of downtown Somerset.
Wow.
And there was a woman that lived there named Maud, and she lived there from 6 months old to when she died in her bed at 94. So basically her entire life was lived in that house.
That's a lot of
energy.
energy.
And the house is now an art center, so it's a public area now. And when that first started, there was a lot of negative energy, but my friend Chris that owns it has went in there repeatedly and like, hey, it's Chris, I hope you see that we're taking care of the place and stuff. And so now that when we go on investigations of that location, I don't want to do it unless Chris is with me, because it's always the most positive results we ever get is when he's with us. And I feel like it's because they recognize him and know that we're not just, you know, bothering them, we're legitimately trying to ask her, you know.
So when you see a transformation from a location like that, what do you think about? You know, I mean, does it like make you feel like, all right, this individual still knows that we're here to take care of it? I mean, that hits you in the feels in a way. And yes, folks, it does get to me sometimes because the tragedy of some of these investigations are horrible of what's happened. But it seems like to me like this is a win-win situation.
Yeah, exactly.
For the person who lived there and plus Chris coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not, obviously she would have preferred to live there probably forever.
Sure.
You know, and she can in a way, but it's not like they came in and made it some, you know, negative energy, you know, not being offensive, but like a lawyer's office or some, like an accountant's office where nothing happens, you know? It's been made into an area where art is created and where like music happens and like a lot of positive energy from the living is still pumped in on a regular basis, you know?
So what's Chris's reaction to this? Has he gotten anything or anybody gotten anything on the EVP wise saying anything positive from her that, you know, if we think it's her, about Chris and this location?
Yeah, we've actually, so the weirdest thing is a lot of times we'll do a circle when we're doing the EVPs and everyone will ask a question or two. More often than not, no one gets an answer except Chris. And it's always like in a positive way, you know? And so it's almost like she views him as like the contact for the rest of us, you know?
Wow.
So I really enjoy that, you know? I definitely think it's a positive relationship.
That is cool. That right there makes me smile because it's hard when a homeowner or just a business owner comes into a location that is got paranormal activity. It's so hard to make that transition over because you don't want to come into a place where you feel dread or scared or stressed out, you know, and you put your life savings into that place and you've already got to give it up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it sucks, but it's so awesome. That is so awesome. Hopefully we can check that out soon. Hopefully. I got to know this though, man. Do you feel, and folks, we're going to get to the museum, trust me. Trust me. Okay, that's good. But do you feel like a location, Kyle, can consume you, take over you, or either researching it or just staying at the location more than usual?
I think it's possible, and I think that there's reasons for that you should listen to. For instance, we had, I should say, it's just recently been taken down. We had a very odd monument in our downtown that was a pyramid that was built by this guy, C.K. Cundiff. And the reason why he built it here in town is because he went on this trip in the 70s, maybe the 60s, where he went to Egypt and climbed the Great Pyramid of Giza. Back then you could climb them. And at the very top of the pyramid, he had a vision that he needed to bring a pyramid to our town of Somerset, Kentucky. And it kind of reorganized the way he did the rest of his business in his life, and he tried to do a lot more in our community after that vision. And he even had this little, it was called Cundiff Square. It was a shopping center that he tried to make the new, like, downtown, basically. And the anchor of it was this pyramid. And I didn't know any of this growing up. I knew that there's a weird pyramid downtown in an abandoned shopping center. And me and my friends would always kind of look at it. And then one day I started just getting really obsessed with it and like started thinking about how strange it was. Some other folks were in town filming a documentary that had nothing to do with the pyramid, or at least on the surface it didn't. And it was just so heavy on my mind. I was like, let's go down there. And we ended up being like filming at the pyramid and stuff. And then it works perfectly into their investigation. And then we find all that mystical history about it, like being created because of a vision and all that after I have become obsessed with it. So it was really almost like it was reaching out to have its story told before its eventual destruction, you know? And it's, again, something that, you know, may have not garnered that attention otherwise, you know? And we found out so many strange things about the pyramid, and it's really became kind of a symbol to us for our own investigations. And now it's gone forever, you know? And so it's really kind of interesting that before it was gone, it did reach out personally to us, you know?
That sucks. I mean, that really does. You know, after having that type of experience and getting involved with it, now it's gone.
Yeah.
It's just gone.
Yeah, it's very strange. It was, I don't know, it was a couple blocks that way. And again, it's something that, like, you know, people always knew it was there, but it wasn't something people paid attention to anymore until we started paying attention to it again, and that was right before it disappeared, you know?
Do you feel that there's too much paranormal equipment in the paranormal field, or not enough?
I think it's really up to the person. Like I said, I think that the most important component to paranormal activity is the investigator themselves. You know, me and my crew try things where we also take out the human element, such as we do virtual magical rituals, where we'll set it up in a computer space and it's doing, you know, a certain set of movements virtually thousands and thousands and thousands of times per second, versus where if a human magician was trying to do it, they couldn't do it, you know, nearly that much. But that's still just the literal acts and not the intent to go behind the acts, you know? Like, I know magic is different than ghost hunting. I'm not really a practicing magician or anything, but the point of, like, all the tools for someone that's doing a magic ritual, those tools are meaningless except that they organize your mind into you being able to do the magic. Like, it's not the tools, it's the magician. And that's how I feel with paranormal, you know? I think you can get a really good response out of just a set of dowsing rods, or I think you can get as scientific as you want with it. My friend Darren and I have this device we're actually building that works a lot on the random number generator, and we measure the randomness in a certain area, and if the randomness average decreases, that literally means there's something in the area making what's going on less random. And so that would be the sign of an intelligence, you know? And that's so scientific compared to, you know, I'm pointing this thing that picks up EM up and it may beep or it may not, you know? But that doesn't make it better. It's just a whole new way of looking at some of this information. And to some people, they can comprehend something like that better for their own, like, ghost hunting rather than dowsing rods. So again, those are tools that help the investigator pick up on the situation because of how they're set up as a human being, you know?
I know this is going to be a crazy question, and I know we're living in a time where we have computers and phones in our hands and things like that, and access to the internet like the blink of your eye. Do you feel like paranormal claims have gotten there's more paranormal claims than, say, before? Or is it just in the time that we're living in now that we see more of it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that for a long time, people didn't look for those kind of things or didn't really expend a lot of mental energy thinking about them. And I do think that mental energy helps manifest them. Just how the theory is that they can manifest from the heat in the static heat in a haunted area. I think that they can use the mental energy that is expended on them to manifest as well. So I think it's a little bit of both, almost a catch-22. There's more stories about them, so there's more people thinking about them, so there's more people looking for them, so there's more people experiencing them,
When did you realize that you wanted to make a museum of this and explain to people when they come in and give them tours and have these haunted items and things in here? What led you to say, I want to do this?
Well, the origins of the museum really happened pretty organically, that my friends and I would go to an area or go to a person's house that they were claiming they were having activity and they wanted help with. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we'd find an item that either they believed or we believed was the source or inspiration for this stuff, and they didn't want it in their house anymore. So we would, take it. We had our own collection for a long time that wasn't on display, and that's kind of the very foundation stones of the museum. But like I said, I'm also a big tourist, and as soon as I started getting into this stuff, I loved traveling the world to these places that are full of these legends, Stanley Hotel or Bigfoot areas in Colorado or New Orleans, these places that are just steeped in this weird tradition. And I'll go there and try to do investigations and try to bring something back, whether it's just, a souvenir or something that's haunted or something that spoke to me out there,
So where have you been at, actually, other than Kentucky, to do investigations at? Where have you traveled to?
I've personally probably been all over the country. I've not been able to leave the country on an investigation. Well, one time when I was very new starting this, I went to a trip. I did a trip to Ethiopia with some people.
Wow. And
it was a church group, so I didn't get to go full weird, But there was a lot of fascinating stuff that we picked up while we were there. We actually, a funny side note is every country in the world thinks the Ark of the Covenant is lost, except for Ethiopia. And they say it's not lost, it's in our church, in the holiest of holies, where only one priest is allowed to go in that room once a year. And when we were in Ethiopia, we actually went to the church that the Ark of the Covenant's housed at, and our group knew one of the preachers, so he didn't let us into the room with the Ark of the Covenant, but I say room, but it's curtains,
yeah.
And then there's an outer room of curtains, and even to get in that outer room, you're supposed to be a dedicated priest in the Orthodox Church, but he let us in there. So we were one curtain away from the room that supposedly has the Ark of the Covenant in it.
So cool.
And so, again, I can't for sure tell you. I mean, I'll be honest, I tried to kick under the curtain a little bit, see if I kicked anything. But we, that was a fascinating thing that we got to do that, is only semi-related to, ghost hunting or anything. But it's still the legend of these crazy energy, signposts that we've always learned about, But that's the only time I've really gotten to do something out of the country. I've been, to California and Florida, and my favorite place in Florida is St. Augustine. It's the oldest continually inhabited place in America, because it's the site of, or in the United States, I should say, it's the site of the first Spanish outpost, and even before that, they've done archaeological digs where they have found Native American artifacts from the first settlement of Native America, the oldest dating. So it is the oldest known continually inhabited area in our country that we know of.
That is so cool.
And so everywhere you go there, it's just crazy, And of course, New Orleans, and I try to go a little bit of everywhere. And now, of course, because of the museum, I like to hit up other people that have places like this, you know, the Witch Museum in Cleveland or the Bigfoot Museum in Georgia.
Yeah, connections.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
what's been your most unsettling place that you've been to that's pushed you to your limits? If any, man.
Yeah, I don't know, because in the beginning I used to definitely take things emotionally, but like I said, like the very first investigation I ever did was, we live here in Pulaski County, Kentucky, and it's the site of one of the first major battles of the Civil War, the Mill Springs battlefield.
Me and Rob was talking about some of that.
And that's the first place we ever went for an investigation. It was me and my one friend, and we go out to the site where the mass grave is, and we had to call another friend to even talk us into getting out of the car. You know, like,
oh, wow.
In the beginning like that, it was, you know, but by now, like, I really, like I said, I think a lot of the time it's a reflection of the energy that's been put into it. So sometimes if you do go somewhere where someone's always been like, oh, that's an evil place, well, you can feel that because so many people go there with the assumption that it is evil, whether it is or isn't, you know. But I can't say that I've ever felt like I've ran into something that was truly evil and wanted to do me in or anything like that, you know.
And people going there and provoking, which is a no-no.
Yeah.
That makes it even worse if there's something there that's not even negative, that you can turn it into that.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you're a friendly spirit, you know, you're going to get pissed if someone keeps on cursing at you and stuff like that, you know?
And here's the biggest thing too, folks. You can psych your own self out. You know that just as well as I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like when first time I went to Waverly Hills, I was thinking about everything I knew about Waverly, and I was like, oh my God, I just need to stop. I need to stop and just calm down and just go to the building and put all that out of my head and do a investigation for myself, because that's why I'm there.
Yeah.
You know, what I see on TV is TV. Okay? That's 100% facts. What's on TV is TV. A lot of stuff goes on at these places, but it's not like a light switch that you just turn off and on. It's like fishing, folks.
Yeah.
You know, you and me both.
Although
have been on
there's
investigations where we sit there for hours not getting nothing.
Exactly. There is a lot of anecdotal evidence. I won't say studies, but like anecdotal evidence that after a haunted place is on TV for the first time, it explodes with haunted activity, and it's because the same idea of like now everyone's focusing their energy on this like new place that they had never heard of, like, oh well, what's the ghost doing there, and they're literally 3D printing crazy activity happening with their own mental powers, you know.
Exactly.
I know that makes me sound crazy, but I absolutely think everyone has a certain amount of mental energy that they can put out into the world. Well, and it's like, you know, people have intuitions, people have hunches, and that's the same kind of idea. I'm not talking about something like where you can read minds or you can decide that there's going to be a little girl spirit here that comes and pokes you, you know. But I'm saying that you can have these ideas, and if enough of that energy is put into them, they can affect your interpretation of reality, you know?
Oh, yeah,
or someone else's.
Yeah, it's like telekinesis. I seen them do a study on one of these shows, and I'm not going to name the show, but I thought it was actually pretty cool, because I was just like, maybe like a thermal, you can see it coming off of them like that, as you would a thermal when you're going like to find spirits and stuff.
Yeah.
And you see the transition when somebody is supposedly telekinesis, and they can do that stuff, and you could see like within a matter of minutes, man, just the colors change.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
so weird, but it's so cool. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
The vibe, the guys were sitting there like, man, the vibe changed. Even the people that ran the cameras like, I've never been through anything like that before.
Yeah.
They're like, it's pure electricity. And you can see the color changes and stuff. And I was like, that's cool. I would love to see something like that. For real. Has this place met your expectations so far in the 5 years that you've been here?
It's definitely exceeded them. I didn't think we'd be around for a year, you know. It's amazing how much support from the community.
That's a big factor.
Not only the local community, but the paranormal community at large. Like, it's crazy how much we've been able to do with businesses across the country and with, you know, sponsoring sports teams in our own community here.
That's awesome.
You know, and it's far exceeded my expectations. We just wanted a place. I just wanted a place to, you know, show off the things that we've found and the experiences I've had, and to be able to talk to people and gather more experiences and stuff. And that's one of my favorite parts, actually, is like people that will come in that they don't care what we have in here or anything like that. They want to come and share their stories with someone that's going to believe them. And like from people like that, we've been able to like build entire pictures that we've never had before. The example I use most often is in a part of our community called White Lily. I've had at least, White Lily is such a small, there's a couple hundred people that live out there. And I can't tell you how many people, well over a dozen, that live out there that have come here and told me that they've seen a Black Panther. And I know that a Black Panther at first just sounds normal because almost everyone you know has a story where, yeah, my uncle saw a Black Panther or something once, but there aren't Black Panthers.
No. Like,
most of us have never seen one in real life and will never see one in real life. We can right now see a YouTube video of a Black Panther in a zoo, but like melanistic large cats are so rare that most of us will never see one. And on top of that, we do not have a panther population in our county. No. We have a very small bobcat population, but even those wouldn't be confused with a larger cat, you know?
And coyotes are a totally different animal, and you can't confuse them two.
Exactly. So, like, a panther, more than likely, if someone tells you that they've seen a Black Panther, that is a cryptid or a spirit or a Native American totem, you know? Yes. And so even that idea is different for people here that have grown up. Yeah, my uncle saw it. It's like, well, yeah, he didn't see a living creature. He saw something, you know? And through the museum, I've had over a dozen people tell me that they've seen Black Panthers out there.
That's so cool.
And so that means that there's just an area in our community where whatever is creating the Black Panther phenomenon is concentrated over there, you know? And so that's something that I would have never found out if I wasn't, you know, lucky enough to be able to have the museum open and have people interested enough to come and tell me those stories, you know?
You've got some artifacts here that's really got me intrigued, my friend. But I got to know, what are some of the artifacts here that people need to stay away from and respect?
So we do a lot here where, like, we do rituals where everything's kind of like bound in the building. I don't think any of this is foolproof, and I think everyone should always like show respect and caution.
Sure.
But we do everything we can to try to keep things away. Like, a lot of the items are behind glass that you shouldn't touch. But one of the items that has caused the most issues with people is we have a haunted leprechaun. And we originally got, he's a stuffed leprechaun that was given to a bar in Manhattan from a distillery for a promotional for St. Patrick's Day. And that bar was already kind of on their way out of business, but after they got, he's named John Jameson, after they got John, everything that happened, they kind of jokingly attributed to him. Then the bar closed, and the owner took him, and he was just in his car, and after about 2 weeks of him being in the car, the owner got into a severe car wreck and was in the hospital. One of the main managers that did work at the bar came and visited him, and the owner ended up giving him the leprechaun. And a couple months after he got the leprechaun, he got extremely sick. Oh. And so there's a line of about 8 people from the original bar owner to me that have all gotten in either severe car wrecks or severe sickness from having them. I consider myself lucky. Again, I treat these guys differently, I think. I got him on a Tuesday, and my birthday was on a Thursday, and I got food poisoning for the first time in my life. And I was in bed for 2 or 3 days, which is pretty mild compared to, the guy I got him from had a stroke at 42, you know? And so I consider myself lucky, but again, I don't view myself as an owner of him. Whether or not you believe these things are actually have spirits attached to them, that's a kind of sticky situation, because I don't want to have something that has a spirit attached to it and then make a joke out of it and like, hey, everyone, like own a freak show where people come and gawk at it. I want these things to be treated with respect. And
yes.
John Jameson, I treat with respect. It's like, I don't own you. You live here in this museum. If you want something, buddy, I'll bring it to you. You know, like it's a partnership, and it's not like a, like a freak show. Like I said, it's not. It wouldn't be fair if you do think that these things have actual intelligences attached to them. It wouldn't be fair to, poke the bear, as they say.
No, you never want to do it. You never want to do that when you go on an investigation, too. You don't want to go in there and laugh and cut up and go on. I mean, you can joke with your buddy every now and again, but as far as like poking the bear, like you said, at that entity.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Yeah,
no.
These aren't just, gimmicks here for our
right.
entertainment, you know?
Would you say that's your most favorite one?
My favorite thing I have in the entire museum is I actually have a piece of the Silver Bridge from Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And for anyone that may not know, the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia fell on December 15th, 1967, killing over 40 people. And this was one of the last events in the publicized saga of the Mothman, where the Mothman came and hung out in this town for about 13 months. There was over 100 eyewitness sightings reported to the police and newspapers and everything. And the bridge was in the town connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Gallipolis, Ohio, right across the Ohio River. And on December 15th, it was overloaded with traffic. Some people say that they saw the Mothman flying on it. Some people say that they saw some men in black crawling around on it a couple days before. But it collapsed when it was full of traffic. And basically that was like the event that made people stop paying attention to the Mothman, because here's a, human life tragedy, And so a lot of people say, absolutely have the bridge as basically the punctuation mark for the Mothman story. And we are lucky enough to have someone whose family owns the area where the original Silver Bridge laid, and they never let anyone come and dig through it. Honestly, the bridge was underwater until 3 years ago, and they finally started digging it out. And this is from right around the same time. The guy that owns the property let the guy that donated the piece of the bridge dig around on his property, and he found it. And he saw a video of us and donated it.
Having that piece of that bridge in your possession and all those people that lost their lives that night, man, it's got to be your piece of that bridge that fell into the water. It's got to be gut-wrenching at sometimes to think about, I've got a piece of that bridge.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff isn't all fun and games.
No,
it's
not.
It's, you have to have somewhat of a, callousness isn't the right word, but you have to have some sort of a shield up so that you're not emotionally always vulnerable to these things.
Yes, sir.
Because you do have to deal with a lot of, not happy situations looking into it. But also, it's it's like a museum dedicated to a tragedy, like the World War II Museum or the Holocaust Museum. Usually you think of a museum as a, fun thing, but it's not. It's something to preserve what has happened in our lives. And that's what I like to think about with some of our less things is that, or less, enjoyable things, is that, there's a built-in reverence and a built-in respect for a lot of this stuff that if you don't have, then you're not really in it for the right reasons,
Yes, yeah, you're there to display it and to educate people what happened, but you've got to have that same token of respect and that shield, like you said, to back off.
Exactly.
Back off. When do you say, no, I can't accept that piece? Have you met your limit to say no, or you want more and more and more?
Well, the only things I ever say no to are things that don't really fit our museum. We are a family-friendly place, and there's similar museums that, delve a little bit. I don't want to bum people out,
sure.
And I don't want to gross people out, and I don't want to jump scare people. But there's other museums, like there's the Museum of Death in New Orleans. It's an incredibly well done place, but it gets very graphic about some of the stuff that it covers. I've had someone come in and try to sell me autopsy photos. No. It's like, I totally get why you would want to, and that is a fascinating piece of history. It's just not appropriate for this museum. You know, like, it's a family-friendly, like, enjoyable, like, time. I don't want
You want people to come back. You don't want to be so grotesqued out they don't want to come back. Spread the word, be like, don't ever go there.
Yeah, exactly.
What about your UFO experience? Because you had a UFO experience, right?
I've had a couple of them, yeah.
Wow.
My very first one that I can remember was actually in the middle of a ghost hunt here in our downtown Somerset cemetery. And I'll tell you exactly what happened, and then I'll tell you what I think about it now, years later.
Sure.
So me and two other investigators were out at downtown Somerset cemetery down here for about 45 minutes or something. We weren't getting a lot of activity. And all of a sudden, when we're in the middle of doing an EVP session, one of us looks up and we go, hey, look, and there's a green light hovering. Most of our town in Somerset is built along Highway 27. And it's about, I don't know, a 10-mile, 8-mile strip that everything's built on. And there's this green light hovering, and it would go north to about the end of the 27 Somerset, and then immediately start going south to that end of Somerset. And it did this maybe 3 or 4 times over our town.
Wow.
And then we're all watching it, and then at one point it just stops, and like a split second later, it shoots off west, and we don't see it anymore.
Wow.
And for years, I just thought how weird that was that, you know, we're looking for ghosts and we weren't finding any, but here a UFO comes. But now, like I've kind of hinted at, like I think everything's kind of related. And so that was an answer to what we were looking for. And it took me years to really think about that. But like we were expecting, our expectations were an EVP or, you know, some sort of ethereal, you know, answer to that in the graveyard. And instead, we see a light in the sky.
Wow.
And that's absolutely an answer to us asking, can you show yourself?
Sure, exactly.
You know? And so,
wow.
For a long time, I just thought of it as 2 separate things, but it's absolutely like, that is the same thing, you know?
To me, that makes me think of a spiritual sighting to say, hey, look, we're here. It's okay.
Yeah.
To me, that would be like a peace in deal.
Exactly.
That's me.
And, you know, think about, what's his name from Blink-182? Tom DeLonge has the Academy to the Stars program where he's doing the UFO disclosure stuff or whatever. And him and Peter Levenda have books out. And they have a set of fiction books that are basically fictionalized accounts of what they've heard and what they're trying to disclose of people that worked in secret space programs and different stuff like this, and where like the characters are made up, but the events are real.
Oh, real, yeah.
And then they have a companion set of books that is kind of the science behind it and then the mythology behind it. And in one of the companion books, they make the point that, you know, if you saw a red glowing light in the sky moving weird now, you would absolutely think it's a UFO. But if you saw that 400 years ago, you would think it was a lantern on a witch's broom.
Yep.
You know? And so it's absolutely what we're ready to understand it as or experience it as, you know?
So did the pandemic hurt the place any at all, or did you see more activity?
So we shut down for about 6.5 months for the pandemic, which sounds heavy, but honestly, so there's not... Businesses don't get this opportunity in normal life. You know, this pandemic offered us this opportunity to shut down for long enough that we completely renovated the museum. We put in over $10,000 at that point in new lighting and cases and info cards and like, you know, back end stuff. And we got to reopen in, I think, September of that year of 2020 with an entirely new like public front, you know?
That's awesome.
And so it really was an opportunity that would have never been able like to happen without the pandemic. And it definitely hurt us, like in the short term, especially that year being closed for that long. But it absolutely in the long term we couldn't be where we are today without that opportunity.
Any artifacts that you're wanting to get in here, possibly? Are there any on your bucket list that you would love to have at this museum?
Not really. There's a lot of things that I want to have, like interactive displays, or like I really want one of those Zoltar fortune-telling machines to be our ticket machine. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that I want to do, but as far as like a specific, I don't know, like Robert the Doll or something, I'm okay without having something like that. I really enjoy doing this, but not in the way where it's like, hi, I'm Kyle doing this stuff and look at what you can find in my museum. It's more like, I can't believe that I get an opportunity to do this for a living and to talk to all these people and have people that come in that at first are poking fun of it, at everything in there, and then at the end they're like, well, that's actually really cool. Yeah. You're doing something amazing for the community. Or you've actually made me ask myself questions. I just like to be, I like that I get to be a vehicle for people to either get introduced into this or feel comfortable enough to talk about it, or just have something fun to do in a community that was historically closed off, and didn't have, like I said, growing up here, there was nothing for us to do. And now I'm part of the generation that we get to decide what's going on, and I get to change my community for the better in a weird way,
This could be like our home base for paranormal investigators or, cryptozoology investigators, stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
even people with, artifacts and stuff like that come in.
Exactly. Yeah, we get to be a magnet. We get to be a signpost for anyone that's into this stuff but doesn't know where to start. I'm sure you've heard about my podcast, the Petty Royal Podcast, where we talk about the weirdness of our area specifically. And there's so many people that are into that, and now we get to be the giant billboard that they, meet under. And that's just incredible. It's a facility for the community in so many ways,
I think, and I'm going to throw this out here, I think we should have a paranormal event here.
Yeah, we've done a couple in this building where so our museum is in the bottom of the Cooper Community Arts Center. This building itself is haunted. It's been around since 1914. It was the original post office for our community, and then in '67 it became the library for our community, and then about 12 years ago it became the Arts Center. And we're so lucky to be able to be in this building. It's one of the most beautiful in our downtown.
Yeah, it is.
It's
breathtaking,
actually. And it has an incredible energy to it. And we've been able to have a few events here that, unfortunately, a couple of plans we had were shut down for the pandemic of ongoing events. But we've had several things here, and we've been able to introduce people that are legitimately in this field trying to find stuff like you guys to this museum, and it just,
I feel home here.
Yeah, I'm proud of the museum, but I'm proud of my town of Somerset.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud that some small thing that I get to do gets to bring Somerset to the minds of so many people, And
I'm glad that me and Robert's back doing this, and hell, we can come down here anytime and bring our stuff and say, hey, Kyle, check this out, or email it to you and say, check this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like this is a home for everybody that needed a home for paranormal investigators.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said before, cryptids, people like that, because I feel like there's so much drama and crap out there. This is for the real ones, folks. Trust me. Just if you're in it for the real deal, this is it.
I appreciate it.
I feel like coming down here, I mean, honestly, I feel at home. I feel like just kicking my shoes off and kicking back. I mean, there's been very few places I felt that way. And it's hard for me to get like that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we really try to just facilitate. We're not here to judge. Like you said, there is a lot of drama in
and it's sad
fields, and it's we don't care. And also, personally, I don't care if you come in here and don't believe any of it and make fun of everything in here. I'm not here to convince you to believe what I believe. I'm here to say this is our history of weirdness that we have in the in the world.
And
you know,
Kentucky is so rich with hauntings, cryptids, everything in between. I mean, it's the South, especially Civil War stuff. I mean, Perryville. What was the other location here you said that was rich in the battle with Civil War?
Mill Springs here. Yeah.
So Mill Springs, Perryville. We've got Middle Creek, where there was skirmish there in Prestonsburg, where me and Robert's from in Floyd County. But to me, this is like, there's so much here that is just not uncovered yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just like we're scraping just the top to give us that little pinch of like, I want more.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so cool because you, me, anybody out, we don't know if Bigfoot exists. There's stuff out there, and Dogman, and just all these other stuff that I'm so fascinated with that you see signs of, but is it really that? But all you could do is take it for a grain of salt and keep it until you run into a likewise fellow like you, and then show it and present it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like this is like the instant, well, kind of like, I feel like this is, like I said before, this is home base for people to come in and show your stuff, and if it's not what somebody else thinks it is, it's fine.
Yeah. And we have a research library in here where some people come in working on school projects or something. They pay the admission just to get access to.
That's
we have
awesome.
Hundreds of books and DVDs and stuff that they can do while they're here. We're hoping to maybe move in the next couple of years to where we'd have a little bit more space. And I'd love to get a little computer lab, a little bit more of a research room to where, and even have like a research membership where people can come in and just, if they want to have their ghost hunting meetings in our research room on Monday nights at 7, they can.
There you go.
And so I like being a resource for the community.
What do you hope that someone takes away when they come here to see all this and they leave? What do you hope that they take with them? Not a spirit or anything. What do you hope that they take with them when they go out?
Honestly, this might sound cheesy, but just kind of a sense of wonder that they may not have as an adult in the world today. Like I said, it's not my job to convince you to believe what I believe. I don't believe literally in every single thing that we cover.
Sure.
But people that run a Native American museum about Native American lore don't have to believe everything in it. That's not the point of the museum. It's to preserve this and to expand these ideas to other people, And that's what I really want. I want them to be able to walk away and be like, even if they don't believe in Bigfoot, be like, well, there were Bigfoot sightings in Pulaski County, or say, they don't believe in the Mothman, but it's cool that they saw a piece of the bridge. We have historical items in here, and even if you don't believe the accounts that we're covering, we cover those accounts that are deeply ingrained in American history. I mean, a small example is the Hopkinsville Goblins encounter.
Yes, UFOs.
That's the first time that the term little green men was ever used to talk about aliens. And it was someone writing, one of the journalists that was staying out there. So whether or not it happened, whether or not you believe it happened, you have to acknowledge that it was an historical thing that changed the pop culture understanding of alien encounters.
And somebody had that encounter.
Exactly. So
we can't say yay or nay about it because we wasn't there.
Exactly.
They're the ones who went through it. So that's it. That's my thing about it. If they say they believed it, they've got evidence on it, then what can you say, folks? I mean, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I like that they come away with this idea of maybe, and that they feel like they've learned something, even if it's not like a practical fact like algebra, that they've learned something about the community that they live in,
So what about, I want to, this will be my last question on this part, but what about cryptids? What's your best thing you've got here on cryptids?
So we actually have a pretty extensive Bigfoot cast display. My favorite ones of those are, we actually have several from Kentucky. We have 2 original footprints taken from our own county, Pulaski County, in May 2007. And those are the only 2 originals we have, where what we have are the castings they made on site. Everything else we have are reproductions of those.
Sure.
But that's one of our better displays. Of course, Bigfoot, leaves more evidence than a lot of these rest of the things, Yeah. So it's a little bit easier to get some Bigfoot castings than, get a piece of a UFO or something,
Folks, please do me a huge favor. Come down to Somerset, Kentucky, and visit the International Paranormal Museum and Research Center. Visit Kyle. He's live, as you can see, because the assistant said he was dead, but no, he's live. He's right here. Seriously, come in here and check this out. If you're interested, or if you've always had that itch about finding out something along the lines of paranormal things like that, come in. He'll give you some examples, talk to you, and you know, you're not alone in this. Everybody has experiences, just about. So Kyle, how can folks stay in touch with you? Come down to the museum, contact you, everything about the museum. How can you do that, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a website. It's internationalparanormalmuseum.com. We don't use that as much as our Facebook and Instagram and stuff. All of that, it's just either International Paranormal Museum or IPMRC. And yeah, I'm down here occasionally. Well, I'm down here all the time, but you may be able to run into me when you come down. And we've talked about doing like curator day tours, where maybe one day a month I'm here specifically giving tours. So
that'd be
check
awesome.
that out. You know,
folks, please get out and subscribe to Beyond the Paranormal Podcast. We're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. We're on every Tuesdays when we can, because live things happen, and that happens even with Kyle's podcast. So it happens. But please check us out and throw us a like and throw us a subscribe, and please come down to the International Paranormal Museum and Research Center, and let's all be a big family about this and help Kyle and him out, man. I appreciate you doing this interview.
I appreciate it.
This has been awesome. Thank you, man.